much. I appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you tonight, although I told Tom and Steve both that I'm not sure I'm really the guy they wanted to talk about the future of politics, especially if it was an ethereal look at this subject. I am indeed a politician. I have my own opinions developed over about 35 years in this business, and my own concerns, of course, about where we're going. But it is impossible to talk about a subject like this without having those opinions filter through some way or other. And so I have to tell you, I'm sure that things that I will say here this evening will be perceived, sometimes perceived anyway, as partisan. I can't help it. I probably am a partisan. But it is the way I view the system. It's the way I view the world. And that's what you asked me to talk about, so I will. First of all, let me say that I was asked, I can't see them, there they are over there, to talk just a moment about the importance of young people in politics, and I can do that by starting out by telling you how I got there. We've got some folks here, some youngsters here that are, I shouldn't have said that, but some teenagers, some young adults that are here tonight, and in lieu of having to do a homework assignment, I think they probably are here, but, and I wanted to tell you that you can be enormously influential in this process, and as time goes by, of course, you will become more so, but I have to tell you that my entire political career started as a result of a pact I made with a group of ninth graders at Drake Junior High in Arvada, 52nd Ward Road in Arvada. I was teaching civics at the time. I was trying my best to get them. I mean, they were talking ninth graders now, and it's not easy to get them involved with civics. It's not easy to get most people involved with civics and civics education. A little bit I'm going to talk about that tonight, but I was bugging them. I kept telling these kids, you've got to get involved. It's important to get involved. This was 1975. I said, and I kept saying, I'll give you extra credit, I'll give you extra credit. And so one of them finally says to me, what are you doing? I said, I'll get back to you. And so a couple of days later, I came back and I said, that was a great question, and I keep telling you to do more and get involved, and so, okay, I will do some more. And I thought I had this great idea, and I said, if all of you, now remember, 32 kids, that's how many I had in that class. If all of you, every single one of you has to do this, if every one of you will get involved in some campaign, upcoming campaign, because we're going into the 76 election cycle, and will, it can be for a person or for an issue. As you know, Colorado, we have a lot of issues on the ballot. So I was encouraging them to do it, and I said, but I added a caveat, and I said, you can't just tell me I'm for Fred or Jane or Mary. You have to say, I'm for them because of this. You have to study a little bit about it, figuring that would winnow it down a little more. And I could get a few of them to do this, and that would be great. And so in 2 weeks, because what happened is, of course, as almost all of them got there, then the peer pressure on all the rest became overwhelming. And they kept saying, you have to do it because we're going to afford, because I said, if you do this, if all 32 of you do this, I'll run for office. Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Crazy idea, right? And so, as I say then, after a while they all put a lot of peer pressure on the few that weren't doing it, and in 2 weeks, there I was, stuck. The last kid came up to me. I still remember who he was. And so I put a list of things on the board for which I could run, city council, state legislature, U.S., all the things that were coming up in that next cycle, and I said, okay, we'll all vote. And I'm still thinking this is going to be, I'll do my little thing, I'll try my best, but what am I going to do? I can't get nominated probably. So we put all the things on the board for which I could run, and they voted. And they voted that I should run for the state legislature. And so I said, well, okay. So the next day I went down to Republican Party headquarters in Jefferson County. Now, this was 75. We had just gotten killed, Watergate, okay? Republicans at every level had lost. We lost the House. We lost the House here for the first time in like 40 years. So the incumbent Republican was out. And so I walk into Republican headquarters and I shook the guy's hand and I said, hi, I'm Tom Tancredo. I'm a teacher. I told my kids I would do this. And he's just shaking my hand, taking my pulse at the same time. And he said, yeah, you're our guy. You'll be great. You're just the person we need. just who we were looking for. And so I said, okay, well, all right. And so I didn't have a primary. I got the nomination, and then I thought, oh my God, now what am I going to do? Because I can't leave my job, and now I'm nominated to run for the state legislature. Now, I've always been political, always. High school, didn't matter. I mean, don't ask me why. I mean, it's just always been political. Enjoyed that, weird that way, I guess you would say. But I used to argue with Mrs. Merkel at Holy Family High School every day about politics. She was a liberal. I was a conservative even then. So I was involved with politics. I loved politics, but I just had not thought about running. I was just theoretically involved, you know? But there I was now, and what could I do? I didn't were my parents, and so I said to my parents, as every little good Italian kid does, he goes to his parents and says, hey, I need your help. You know, what are you going to do here, man? I need your help. Because now I got to run, and I can't leave the legislature. I mean, I can't leave my teaching job. So would you help? And they said, sure, what do you want? And they're not political. My mom worked for Joslin's department store for 45 years on 16th and Curtis. Okay? 45 years as clerk, Joslin's department store. My dad worked for Armour & Company until it closed here in Denver, and then he worked for Inland Paper and Box. He drove a truck. They were not political people. They were blue-collar people. I grew up in North Denver. So I said to them, you got to help me. They said, well, we don't know. I said, just don't worry. We'll give you all the stuff. You just go out and knock on doors every day and hand out this little stuff, and they'll be fine. So, okay, they'd go out every day. Fine. A couple of weeks later, my dad says to me, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. I said, so what do you mean you quit? You can't quit. It's impossible. You can't quit. He says, no, I quit. I said, why? He says, because it's your mom. He says, every day we get out. Okay, I got my stuff. I go up my side of the street. She's got her stuff. She goes up her side of the street. I reach the top of the block. I look across the street. Your mom's not there. I walk across to do her side. I start at the one door, and I walk all the way down, and there she is at the very first door. And she's going, but he's such a good boy. And so I says to my mom, you got to kick this in gear. You got to get going. Dad's going to quit. And she says, well, Tommy, what am I going to do? I go to the door. People say to me, well, what does he believe in? And I don't know anything about politics. And so I always go, well, I'm not sure, but he's a good boy. So I said to her, Mom, fine. Who's going to vote against a good boy, right? Well, I won. I walk off the stage, the very first time I ever got, a chance to speak, and I'm walking off the stage, and this guy grabs my arm, and he goes, who are you again? I said, well, I'm Tom Tancredo. I'm your new state representative. And he goes, well, what happened to that older guy I voted for? Because he, of course, had voted for my dad. And all the rest probably had voted for my mom. The way it was. So that's one way into politics, and you can do it if you. And so, any teacher in the room here, don't make these crazy bargains unless you're willing to, go through with it and live up to it. Well, as I say, though, I have always been political. I loved it in college. I was the college Republicans. There were 4 of us at the University of Northern Colorado, 4 college Republicans, 4 Young Americans for Freedom, same 4 people. And this was during the Vietnam War. We'd set up a table. It would last about 20 minutes, get knocked over, all the stuff, get thrown away. And but it was an exciting time. People were blockading the school, trying to shut down the schools then, remember? Shut down the campus, the war thing. And so they would blockade the classrooms, and teachers would refuse to teach. And we would bust through. We'd go, let me through there, And I'm thinking, what class is this? I've never signed up for it, but I paid for this class. I want to go, And so we were always involved in a lot of very interesting debates. And it was great because there were so few of us, conservatives, there still are on most college campuses, but there were so few of us that we were always asked to go and debate the SDS usually, Students for a Democratic Society at the time. That was the group they're back, by the way. That's the ones that threw the bricks through the window at the University of North Carolina, where I tried to speak about 3 weeks ago and ended up, I couldn't do it. They started a riot and started throwing bricks through the window, and it got very hairy, so I had to leave. Same group, Students for a Democratic Society. Oh, fascinating, Yeah, it brings back a lot of good old memories. That's exactly right. But So we would debate them all over, and my political philosophy was forged in that fire, so to speak. And I felt I had to know a lot about what I was saying because, of course, we were debating very, very well-informed people, and so I tried my best, and I just got more and more excited about the whole thing. Again, theoretically. Now, although my entrance into politics wasn't all that dramatic in terms of theory and philosophy, it came about as a result of what I just described here. I am a person that's driven by issues. Issues matter to me. Agendas matter. This may strike you as surprising coming from me. I respect something about Barack Obama. He is a total, devoted, and driven ideologue. He is a committed socialist. He wants a different America. I don't agree with him on what he wants. I don't agree with him at all about where he wants to take the country, but I like the fact that he is committed to something. He has an agenda. He's trying his best to move it. If I were President of the United States, I guarantee you I'd be trying my best to move a conservative agenda, just as hard as I possibly could. So I kind of like that, and I know a lot of people are turned off by it. They want politicians who are not driven by ideology, they are driven by pragmatism. I often hear that. Being able to work with both sides and all that sort of thing. But even Barack Obama, remember when he came, when he had all the Republicans come into the White House to talk about the stimulus package, give them their ideas, and they kept saying, we want more tax cuts and less spending on social programs, he finally said, hey, I won. Yeah? I won. End of statement. All the talk, all the rhetoric about a brand new day in Washington, a brand new thing of, of collegiality and compromise. That's all out the window. He won. He knows it. He's got the Congress, and he's driving America where he wants to go. Now, I can argue with where he wants to go, but I'm not arguing with his desire to do it and with his willingness to do it. Put everything on the line. I think even if it cost him a second term, I do believe he'd say, that's okay. I want a more socialistic America. And I'm going to do everything I can to get there. And even if it costs me a second term, I don't care. I like that aspect of it. I mean, I don't like, again, I underline, don't like where he's going. But the idea of people who are committed to an ideology, that's okay with me. I know it's become a bad thing to suggest that you have one, that you've got an agenda. It always seemed like there are two kinds of people that run for office. One is the person who says, and this is not, it's very simplistic, and I understand this, but, and you can't always say that they're that separate. They merge, but I've always observed, even when I was back in the state legislature years ago, there was a driving force for a lot of people, and that was, I want to be that, fill in the blank. I want to be county commissioner, state representative, president of the United States, whatever it is. That's the goal. That's the goal. I've decided that. Now, once you decide that one thing, then you can start thinking about all the things it's going to take to get you there. What do I have to do? What do I have to say? Who do I have to be? And those are just the things that you have to think about to achieve the goal you've already set for yourself, because the goal is the seat. Then there's a person who is ideologically driven, has an agenda, realizes that that's the place you have to go in order to enhance it. I sort of like that person and that motivation more than I like the first. And as I say, they get connected, don't get me wrong, not all one, no one is all one or just the other, but I'm sick to death of people who simply want to be whatever. And so in politics, and the future of politics to me is, I'm worried, of course, I'm greatly worried about where we're going as a nation and where we're going throughout the world. Because I am I'm a strong believer that the republic we've established here is a pretty good thing. In fact, it's a very good thing. In fact, I am not a person who believes that all things are relative, all systems are the same, all political systems, social systems, they're all the same. I don't think that's true at all. I think some are better than others. I think ours is the best. It's the way I think. You can call it egocentric and ethnocentric and egotistical of me, but I think it's empirically provable. If you open the gates all over the world, which way do people go? I mean, do you know anyone now who has escaped from the West, be it Western Europe or the United States, for a better life in, say, Pakistan? Do you know anyone who's done that? A better life. Now, you may be escaping from the West for other reasons. FBI's on your tail or whatever. But generally speaking, when you're talking about what decisions people make when they leave the country of origin, the mass movement of people is to the West. Now, what does that tell you? They're making a decision because they're leaving something that they think is not as good as what they're going to. Right? I mean, do you know anybody who has left for any other reason? I mean, there are people, I'm sure, leave for a lot. But for the most part, they're making decisions affecting their very lives, leaving families and friends and all the rest for something better. And when they do that, they choose the West. Now, that's just the way it is. You may be uncomfortable with the idea that we have something better here. I'm not. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. But now we have to think about the future. If what we have here is good, and if it is good because of what we constructed from a political and economic standpoint, what kind of political system, what kind of economic system do we put together that made this the place to which everybody wants to go when they leave the point of origin? I think it is because we created something called a republic. A republic, not a democracy. Now not an empire, that's exactly right. Although there was plenty of manifest destiny that existed to move us throughout, from the one shore to the other. But this republic, the idea of a republic, well thought out, I believe, by the Founding Fathers, balances, checks and balances on, and what were those checks and balances oftentimes designed to do? They were designed, I think, to temper the attitudes of the masses. And yes, even the vote was not universal, certainly. And we now think of that as being somewhat provincial, to say the least, that only, free male people living with property could vote. And I'm not suggesting that we would necessarily return to that, but I am telling you that there is something about having the vote belong to people, being given to people who have a stake in the system, that's good. I think that was a pretty good concept. I don't like the racial implications, I don't like all the other stuff, but I like the idea of the vote being something that actually is given to people who care, understand, and I underline understand, who we are. Samuel Huntington, a brilliant, I think, a brilliant observer of the political scene. Harvard scholar, Olin Fellow, author of many books. One I thoroughly enjoyed was called The Clash of Civilizations. But the next one, and the one he wrote right before he died, about almost a year ago now, is asked the seminal question of our time, I think, for us, and that is, who are we? Who are we? Because I believe one of the issues, as you know, that I get involved with a lot of is immigration, but I believe that there are significant implications to massive immigration of people, especially of people who do not want to assimilate, do not want to become American. I think there are also a lot of implications for us when we ourselves, people born here, generations maybe here, still don't know who we are, don't know about America, about the Republic, how it was formed, why it was formed, what's the difference between a republic and a democracy. Why is it that we are not a democracy? Why was it that they created something other than a democracy? What were they afraid of? If you don't understand these things, then your willingness to continue them certainly is limited, I think. Because there is an allure to populism. And I see it all the time, and parties have nothing to do, believe me, I see it on the Republican side as much as I see it on the Democrat side. That's one of the reasons why I was so frustrated in Congress, to tell you the truth. Because we didn't distinguish a difference. We tried to steal a page out of their book. We could spend more, we can promise you more, we can make a bigger government, we can solve your problems. You got a health care concern, we'll pass the Medicare prescription drug bill. The Republicans, you know? The president calling members off the floor 5 o'clock in the morning because they kept us on the floor till 6:30 a.m. to get the votes. Telling people, you've got to vote for this. Totally, I mean, from my point of view, nothing about that bill was Republican or conservative. It was all an expansion. It was the biggest expansion of government. I mean, in those days, that time we used to think that was a big expansion. God knows what has happened to us since Obama. But at that point, that was a pretty big, it was the biggest expansion of government since the creation of Medicare. And we did it. And why? Because power became the elixir. Power was the thing that drove everything. Power, stay in power, maintain power. Everything else, principles, ideas, all went by the boards. We were doing exactly the same thing as people, as liberals. I mean, when you recognize you can gain power by promising everything, promising to cure all of your ills. You don't know how it's going to happen. It's going to be, spending a lot of somebody else's money in the process. Okay, doesn't matter, because people buy into that. Absolutely buy into that. All these other ethereal, the questions of the republic, who we are, the question Samuel Huntington asks, who are we? They're not important in the election, in the voting booth. They were not important the last time. Nobody cared about that stuff. They cared about their jobs, the inflation, and just to make life better, a change. Okay? This is worrisome for the future. I believe that here's the proposition. A republic, in order to survive, needs an educated electorate. I believe that. Okay? I think we are in great danger of losing the republic because we do not have an educated electorate. And why? Well, there's lots of reasons. I mean, certainly it is the public school system that has dumbed down the teaching of civics and to the point where and changed it entirely. Now it's a propaganda tool for the people who want to make Western civilization the bad guy for the world. All Western civilization, everything we've done, all we are, everything we've created. I told you what happened to me at the University of North Carolina, but just on Wednesday I tried to speak at Providence College, Providence, Rhode Island. It's a Catholic school. They would not let me speak on the campus. The Archbishop, who's on the board, said I don't agree with him, and I don't want what he says here. And he says, if we ever let him on this campus, it will be only in a debate format. Well, I wasn't asked to debate. I was asked by a group of kids who, by the way, they're called Youth for Western Civilization. And there are like 6 of them, and they're wonderful. And I thank God every day that they're there. And they asked me to speak. 400 people. So I did speak. I did. Not on the campus, but on the gates, outside the gate of the campus, on the street corner. And about 300 or 400 of them came down to protest me with these big masks on, actually paper plates painted red and white and everything. And I didn't get it at first. I said, what are the paper plates, with rubber bands? What's this all about? And the kid said, I think they're trying to say they're diverse because it was red and blue and so petrified of what I had to say about Western civilization, about the fact that there is something of value. Incredible to me. A college campus. The marketplace of ideas. But no, mine were not allowed. I would not be allowed to speak unless somebody else, and then, well, they actually didn't allow me to speak at all, and then said, well, if you come back, you'll only be allowed to speak if you have somebody that you're debating with. Amazing, incredible, but this happened. Okay? People who are petrified of the idea that I might be talking about the value of Western civilization. Because all they have been taught for all these years in this system is that it sucks. Western civilization, that is. And who we are. Everything is rotten. I pick up a textbook in a 9th grade charter school in Applewood, Colorado. It's supposed to be, charter school, back to the basics. I'm waiting to talk to the kids in between classes. They're going, I'm picking up a textbook. I open it up. The first page of the chapter on American history is, I quote, first sentence, Columbus came here and destroyed paradise. Now, that was not in quotes, wasn't in italics, it wasn't a statement that we could debate. That's the beginning of the chapter, okay? I talked to a group of kids at West, let's see, it was in Douglas County, my district, brand new school, Eagle Crest, Eagle View, something. Hadn't even had a senior class, graduate. Beautiful school, my God, the most, honest to goodness. Kids driving in their BMWs, tan from skiing at Vail or Aspen that weekend, have everything they could possibly, from a materialistic sense, what more could we give these kids? Everything that a society can possibly bestow upon them, they are getting. And they came into an auditorium, and I said, and the teachers lined up along the wall, and we started talking, and I said, how do you like your school, this new school? Yeah, everybody said, yay, oh, absolutely, it's great, we love it, it's wonderful. I said, what do you think about your team? Thinking, they haven't won a game, I'm told, in 6 months. Hey, it's wonderful, the team, we love it, it's great. I said, what do you think about your country? Dead silence. Dead silence. I said, what do you think about your country? Do you love your country? Do you like your country? They all start looking at the teachers. Like, how in the hell am I going to answer this question? What can I say? About 10% raised their hand. Maybe 20 kids out of the 200 actually did, and it was all this tepid, I'm like, my God, what if he calls on me? What if he says, oh yeah, why? What if he challenges me? How could I possibly defend who we are? Right? I could see it. I mean, I'm taught for a long time. I could see that look in their eye. I don't believe that the rest of them hated America, not for a moment. I believe that the rest of them were intellectually unable, they were unarmed, they were unable to affirm the proposition that America and Western civilization essentially was a good thing. Impossible. Now, when Samuel Huntington asks who we are, and if they can't answer it, and frankly, most people, I fear for this republic. If we say a republic its success, its viability depends upon an educated electorate. Where are they going to come from? They're not going to come from our schools. Look at what is happening throughout our society in terms of educating the electorate. I mean, Twitter, you guys, I don't know, I don't tweet, Twitter, whatever, and I know I should, we talked to Tom about this, and I know I should do all that, but I just cannot conceive of my time being usefully spent in communicating with somebody who can only use 140 characters in the transaction. What possible kind of communications can you have, limited as it is to this, this, but that is America. Don't get me wrong, that is exactly where we're headed. I mean, that's where we are. This instant and very minute communication process. Do you know that Nixon, during the Nixon-Kennedy election, they actually did a study about how long were the hits that each candidate would get, like during, on the news at night or something like that. And they were 2 to 3 minutes, 2.5 to 3 minutes was what they would give that's what the national news would provide for each one of the candidates. The soundbite, that's what it was, the soundbite. 2 to 3 minutes. It is now 7 seconds. 7 seconds is the average soundbite allowed on the media. What's that? What did you say? You can tweet that. That's the problem. That is exactly the problem. Yeah, that's true too. Everything is condensed so dramatically in terms of the time allotted. And there is an enormous amount to be said about the incredible growth of the internet, of course, and all of the things attendant to it. And Obama credits it for a large part of his success, and I don't disagree. I think it certainly was a significant part of his campaign, and he used it masterfully. But I have to tell you, I don't think that that massive use of the internet and competency on the internet equates to civic literacy. Okay? I think we're going to have lots of people using it, lots of people blogging, lots of people doing all the things that, those of us in a different generation and used to, like I explained how I got elected, my parents going out, handing out stuff. That's what we thought it was all about. It's a totally different game, that is for sure. Undeniably true. Totally different game for politics today. But I don't think that it's necessarily, I cannot see a better informed electorate as a result of the use of the media, of the internet, and the social media. I just don't see it. It may be there, but it's escaping me. Look at the clutter that we are exposed to every single day. I just read something about the other day, 2,000 messages a day, advertising messages we get. The average, from the time we wake up in the morning, open the newspapers, turn on the television, radio, say, no matter, 2,000 a day. These are messages that we're getting to make us buy something, vote for somebody, do something, right? I mean, the clutter is amazing. And it doesn't help that, again, people are so uninformed about the process. And it does worry me about the future of politics. Is the republic viable in a society where you do not have this basic understanding of the system? And that it is all driven by this quick message, the instantaneous message, the soundbite, appealing to the basest aspects of our social life. I mean, let's think, I know this is going to sound terribly partisan, but think about those commercials. And think about the things, remember, what was his name? What's the guy that has that really nasty radio? No, well, yeah. Even worse. Howard Stern did this thing where he went out and asked all these people these questions, and he just changed. He was asking every Obama voter he could find. Are you going to vote for Obama? Are you going to vote for him because he wants to stay in Iraq until we finish the job, or because he's pro-life? Well, because he's pro-life. And they went through this whole, and they just turned all of the policy issues backwards. And one of them was, are you going to vote for him because he's chosen Sarah Palin as his running mate? Yes, I love Sarah Palin. Yeah, she's great. This is wonderful. It's great. I used them. I did Mike Rosen's show. I take over for him once in a while. And I do his show tomorrow, by the way. But I take over for him. I don't take over tomorrow. I just on his show. And so I would use all of these little sound bites as intros every time we come back from a commercial. It was just hilarious. I loved it. I loved listening to it. And they were all over. It wasn't just Howard Stern. They were all over the place asking people who were lining up to vote. Who are you voting for? Obama. Do you know why? No, I like him. Changed all this. And I'm not sure they could spell vote. But the fact is, they had the vote, and they were going in and exercising it, and we all think that's great. Everybody should vote. No, I don't think so. Frankly, if you're too stupid, I would love to have I wish I could have passed. I know this would have gone nowhere, but the reality is, if you're too dumb to figure out what the system is all about, I would like to have a civics test for anybody to vote. Now, it's completely against the civil rights. It's not against the Constitution. The Supreme Court has already ruled it's perfectly legal to ask for a literacy test under the Constitution. We then passed the Voting Rights Act, which says you can't. So, you can't do it, but I would love to do it simply because I just don't see there is no right for somebody who doesn't understand the basis of our system to be able to control my life. There's something about that I don't like. And that is, I guarantee you, I mean, that's where we are going, this populist issue. Now, what happens when you do not have an educated electorate? You lose the possibility of maintaining a republic, I think. And what are the possibilities? They're I think, very scary, okay? Very scary. Without an educated electorate, the possibility of moving toward a demagogue and a change of our system dramatically is very possible. And I believe we're seeing it. Now, again, I'm a partisan guy, so you're going to have to, just accept that and argue with me as soon as this is over with. But I believe we're seeing that. And now, add this to the mix. Add this to the mix, guys. What happens if within a few months, even a year, 2 years, there are a lot of events around this country? What happens if bombs start going off in airports and malls and schoolyards? And it happens almost simultaneously, 5 or 6 around the country? Because I tell you, that's what they're planning. That is the plan. Okay, take my word for this. That is what they're planning. Sorry? Oh, this is this is radical Islamists. They are definitely planning it. Whether they can carry it off or not, I certainly don't know, but I'm telling you that they are planning it. So what happens then? I mean, what happens if all of a sudden we start being in fear of our very existence, and it's just that sort of thing, that basic, I forget everything else kind of issue, and I'm only going to be concerned about this. Is that not even more? Is that not an environment where a demagogue can even be more imposing a figure and more that it's more possible to be led by one? At what point? Remember, Germany was the most highly educated society in Europe at the time that they elected Hitler. There were circumstances, certainly the economy in shambles, but a highly articulate and great fear, great fear. Somebody will lead you out. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, educated. That's exactly right. You're absolutely right there. There you go with saying, well, can a republic survive? Well, of course, their experience with it was a very short one, very short-lived. I would hope that we could, by educating people to the benefits of a society that has lasted 200 years as a republic, make the difference.
It's about being part of the franchise, or being, not feeling disenfranchised versus education. Most people feel out of the system or separate from the system.
Yeah, I'm sure they feel they're out of the system even if they are educated by the system. Yeah. Well, you're right, because, of course, you could feel it that way if you consider the possibility that it's being run, the system is being run by a lot of people who aren't in that same category, that don't have the same, that are simply, and another thing that worries me, of course, is the movement toward the elimination of borders, the minimization of the issue of the idea of citizenship, that it really doesn't matter anymore. The Constitution is of no, Obama said the other day it was a flawed document. He'll fix it. And you just can't imagine what's going to happen in a system where if we no longer have borders, if they don't matter, if people can come across them at their will, and eventually vote. I mean, look at Europe, okay? Europe is a place that started out with an economic union. 5 or 6 countries, 1956. They said, we're going to get rid of our tariffs. Okay, great idea, an economic union. Look what it has grown into, 27 countries now, and with far more than an economic union. It is now a political union. They have the European Parliament. It passes laws. It collects taxes. Okay? Sovereignty, individual state sovereignty, no more boundaries. And beyond that, by the way, a common currency, right? We are pushing those envelopes here in the United States with the absence of boundaries, north and south, with the idea that we're all just residents. I mentioned at the University of Denver. I remember I was speaking, and a group of students got up in the back of the room and started chanting, America is not an effing country, it's a continent. I have heard that several times, by the way. student groups. High school in Omaha, a little girl raises her hand. Said she was an illegal alien. She says, "Why do you keep calling it America?" Well, she says, "You keep saying America. You're talking about the continent, right?" Because we are minimizing the importance of boundaries and of nation states. And what do you think will happen if in fact the franchise is open to all, from third world country? I mean, it doesn't matter. You get here. You vote because you're present. You're a resident. Not a citizenship is of no consequence. You're a resident. I do not think that's a future that I would enjoy, nor one I want to leave to my children or grandchildren. But it is where we are heading, I'm afraid. And we're going to wrap it up. I understand. But it's not. I'm not sure that we can change this. I do know this, that it will never change unless we are aware of what's happening to us. And unless we can eventually answer Samuel Huntington's question, who are we? And what does America really mean? What if you say you're an American, what does that mean? Are there implications to that, as opposed to being a resident of the North American continent? I think so, and I hope that that's the future of politics, that we will revive that spirit. But it will not be easy, nor do I see it being the probability. But nonetheless, we can hope, and I do. Thank you very much. Thank you.